Welcome, everyone. This is Final Resonance TV. We're here with the Musical Journeys episode Magic 16. I'm your host, Lisa Williams, and today we have behind the camera Jeff Goebel himself, the man who usually is the host, but today...
I got talked into it.
Yes, right. We're going to ask him the questions, and we're going to find out more about Jeff.
Uh-oh.
I've known Jeff for a while. Amazing musician, recording artist, friend, businessman, all those things, but I think it's really going to be cool to find out from him today. And I've got some questions for you. I
haven't even looked or anything. This is totally off the cuff.
That's right, totally off the cuff. So, to start out,
okay.
All right, to get us really in serious mode to get going here,
all right.
I'm going to ask you these questions and you're going to answer off the top of your head, okay?
Okay.
All right. Coated strings or non-coated strings?
Non-coated strings.
All right, now you know. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
All right. Now you know how to bribe them.
All right.
Les Paul or Fender?
Les Paul.
Okay. Humbucker man. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
I've seen like 5 Coke cans around here, so I know what
and
he
I
lives
cleaned
on.
up, too.
Okay. Key of A or key of D?
A.
A.
Of course.
All right.
Guitar players.
That's right, exactly. Ice cream or donuts?
Both.
Both. Why should you have to choose?
Right.
All right. All right. Pick or no pick?
Pick.
Pick. Okay.
Most of the time.
Can you guess this one? Hat or no hat?
Hat.
Okay. All right. M&M's or Reese's Cups?
Reese's Cups more often.
Okay. You have a favorite color of M&M's? Green?
Not really.
Red?
I'm not. Yeah.
Not really?
I
Okay.
even eat the brown ones.
Okay. All right. Digital or analog?
Both.
Both. It's kind of like donuts and ice cream. All right.
Yeah.
Last one. EL84 or 6L6?
Ooh, that's tough. EL84 or 6L6. Mm-hmm. Both.
Both. All right. This is a man that wants it all.
I want them both. I have them both. I like them both.
All right.
Both are good.
All right. So, tell us about how you got started in music. What inspired you? We all have our inspiration stories. What got you saying, hey, you know what? I got to pick up the guitar and I got to play music.
Well, there's the obvious one that most people know, but I'm going to go back a little further.
Okay.
My mother was really excited about the idea of me playing an instrument, so she wanted me to take up piano. When we were kids, there was all kinds of stuff playing in the house, everything from ABBA and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Simon and Garfunkel and Barry Manilow and a whole bunch of different things. So it was all over the place. But I didn't connect with the piano that quickly, and I never really took a lesson. My mother and sister both played. So I never connected for the piano. I don't know, thought it was too hard or something. I don't know. It just didn't grab me. So in 83, I saw Eddie Van Halen on TV.
Okay, and how old were you?
I was about 14 or 15.
Okay.
And I saw him on TV, and I saw him in a video by Van Halen called Unchained, which was a live video on a show called Don Kirshner's Rock Concert.
I remember that.
Which was like
great stuff.
Midnight special era show, late night show that just came on. It just came on randomly, and I just saw David Lee Roth, and I was like, whoa, who's this guy? Next thing I knew, I heard Eddie Van Halen. Mm-hmm. But I'd already heard him. I didn't know it. It was Beat It that I heard him on before that, but I didn't. At the time, you didn't see people's faces readily. They didn't have their faces. If they were a guest musician on, say, Thriller, you didn't see his face. It was in a liner note. Mm-hmm. So I had actually heard him, but I didn't connect with him yet. So when I did, it was monumental. So
all right.
I was.
And so, what did your mom say when you said, "Mom, I want to play the guitar, no more piano stuff"?
Well, they were, they wanted me to. Yeah, they wanted me to play something, so they were all about it. So
they
took me to a store in Birmingham called Forbes Music, which is no longer there, down on 4th Avenue, I think, downtown. And we started looking at guitars. And one of the first guitars I was attracted to was obviously something like Eddie Van Halen, a single humbucker in the back, a real stripped down. There was a Roadstar Ibanez that was like that. And then there was a Les Paul, a black Les Paul custom that was used that they had, which was amazingly only $500.
Oh my gosh, that was a lot of money.
At the time it was. But now.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I really wanted that. And then they had another amp that I really liked, which was a Super Champ by Fender, which is really the first small tube amp that sounded like what we know as modern distortion, and today. And so I had this Les Paul plugged into this Super Champ, and I was just probably hitting one string or something. But I knew that was the sound that I wanted.
That was it.
But anyway, the parents, of course, were probably like, let's get him something, but let's get him started, and then we'll see where he goes. So I ended up with a Roadstar. That's a 2 pickup humbucker guitar, and I think it was either a Crate or an Ibanez amp that had distortion on it. Pulled it, the pot to do it, and so I sat around trying to play for the next year,
Yeah.
And
what was your first song that you learned?
Well, all the way through was Paranoid by Black Sabbath.
Wow.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I can think of, riffs, but at first it was just trying to get around, and I think Paranoid was the first song that I actually could play all the way through.
Okay, so this was in high school, and did you put a band together after?
Yeah. I mean,
you
almost
played?
immediately after I got my guitar,
Oh, that's ambitious. That's pretty
well,
good.
I had friends in high school, and we were doing BMX and stuff, so immediately I got to get my friends involved in this. So I get my friends involved, and one of them gets a bass, and I get my other buddy to play a second guitar, and we put together a little band. And in fact, that bass right there was the bass, my buddy's bass.
Still have it. That's
Yeah,
great.
still have his bass, and we have the matching guitars. So we would go to the same teacher. We started taking from a teacher named Kenny Bush, who would take us back to back. My mom would drive us over there, and he would go in for his 30 minutes, and then I would come out, or he would come out, and I would go in for 30 minutes. But we would learn the same songs.
Okay.
He would learn the bass to whatever, Iron Maiden or whatever, and I would learn the guitar to that, so we could play together, and that's kind of how we started to build a band. We got a drummer, and we had a high school band called Midnight Sun, which kind of changed members as we went, but...
Well, tell me this then. How did it feel? What was it like for you, the first performance? Because I think everyone
Oh, God.
remembers
Yeah.
the first performance they've had. What did it feel like? How was it on stage? And then when you walked off the stage, what was the feeling?
Okay, well, actually, the first performance I ever had was for my sister's friends. They had a house party at my house, my sister's friends. So somehow we snaked our way into being able to be the band for this thing. In fact, I just posted a picture on Instagram this week about that picture of me and my drummer and a guitar player. We were playing dual guitars with just drums at the time. And we played Iron Maiden and all the stuff we liked, right? But my sister's friends, they were really nice about it for a little bit, but then they all went back on the back deck and got away from us
Turned
while
on
we
the
played
radio.
while we played the Maiden. So that was my first experience with pleasing your crowd.
Okay.
And but it was the first time I'd played live, so I was a little scared, even though it was only 25 or 30 people.
Yeah.
And but I can't remember exactly how it came about, but maybe my mom suggested that they do that or something just to give us the opportunity to experience that.
Well, that's probably where you have always been very smart in the way you have put your bands together. You treat music as a creative outlet, entertainment, but you also treat it as a business.
Right.
And I think that's why you are seen as one of the successful musicians in this town, because you do treat it like a business. But you understand your audience.
Yeah.
So tell me the process of how you go about putting a band together, because you have had many bands and you
Right,
currently have
right.
more than one band.
Right.
That's a lot of juggling around.
Yeah.
So how do you go about putting the right people in the band and the business of the band?
Well, early on it was just my friends. We would just, but that's when I first learned about, chemistry within bands. Who fits and who complements each other, and can we be consistent and put together something that's really good. And so you learn about dealing with people, personalities, and you try to find the right people that fit together. And it's difficult. I mean, even like over the last 10 years, I've been able to find good people, really good people. Everybody's been great. A great singer, a great player. But sometimes people's lives take, different paths. So when they take their different paths, it's just something you have to roll with the changes.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard for me for a long time to roll with those changes because you invest so much in each
true.
project, each time. You know, I don't think people realize how much time it takes you to put together a band and put together a list of songs and everybody be on the same page, and then get really good at it, only to be just getting good at it when somebody's got to move or decides.
And then getting all the gigs together too. That's a lot of work
you're
right
working
there.
on all that at the same time. So all that happens, and it's really hard to be consistent. And I think that for bands, you know, if you can stay together long enough, it really pays dividends. You know, you got to stay together long enough to see the fruits of your labors, because it takes a while. So, you know, I've been lucky, especially with like Crush was a 10-year band.
And that's pretty amazing to have a band for 10 years.
It was hard. It was hard. There was a lot of changes too. We had a lot of different members, but through it all, we kind of kept the same type of music that we did, the general type of dance rock that we did, and that really worked for us. So, but before that, if you go back before I was even here in Huntsville, I was playing with older guys who kind of taught me the ropes about playing to crowds, playing certain situations, and I learned after playing weekend after weekend of house gigs that I had in Birmingham. I did it for 10 years, where I played music that I wasn't familiar with, not the stuff that I grew up on, but classic songs. And those songs helped me build a repertoire on top of what I already had, which was the rock stuff. You know, the My Girls and all those things, those classic songs. They helped me learn those songs. And that was something that I came to town with and used in Crush initially, was to create as much variety as possible so that I could get something out there for everybody that would come see us every night. And that was my first thing. But then you have to think about the singer. How capable is the singer to do all of that? It's very difficult to have somebody who has all that range from the bottom to the top to be able to cover all that different types of material. So again, it's finding the right people that can do those things. I mean, sometimes I think people might think that I'm really hard on singers because I expect them to do Journey one minute and then, you know, I don't know, who knows, Easy or something the next minute, you know, and it's a huge range of, but I've been lucky. I found some people that could do those things. Yeah. So it's great when you can find them and they're the right kind of, they have the right kind of work ethic. They have the other pieces to go with it. Yeah. So that's important. It's really important.
And that's a tough thing to put, you know, 3 to 5 people together because it is a family that is trying to get along all the time together.
Right. And then you got to have not only the given skills to play and sing, but you got to be able to be on time. You got to be able to treat it like a business because you're being paid to be at your work.
That's right.
And I know it's hard for people to put the artistic side around the money, and I don't like to either. I mean, I'm like everybody else in here. I have a artistic leaning, but I've learned that if I want to do this for a living, I have to be able to be flexible.
Yes, that's true, and it is a business, and that's one of the things. Before I really had the opportunity to meet you in person, that's the one thing that I observed about you from the outside. I definitely noticed you're a very talented musician.
Thanks.
But I noticed the way you operated that you're also a really good businessman, and that's the only way you can do it if you're going to make it. You know.
Yeah, I was in. I didn't say this, but I was in corporate for more than 10 years, and I'd come from, working jobs like being the manager at a sporting goods store, and I had a little bit of retail experience.
And working with people also, the customers.
Yeah, and I worked in music retail as well, selling instruments and stuff like this. So I had a little bit of retail and a little bit of experience with people in that environment. And then when I got in the corporate world, it's a very similar, again, you're dealing with lots of different contacts and people that you have to meet. I was in sales, so it was another growing phase of learning how to work with people and also looking at the bottom line at the same time. And so that kind of carried over and back into music again, and I became a little more focused about doing this once I got into it full time. It changed my focus. I've had a few people who work with me who ended up losing their job, and when they lost their job, their focus about being full time totally flipped.
Yes.
All of a sudden, it's really important to be there on time. It's really important to please your crowd. It just changes your perspective. And it's a little different for people who are just doing it as more a side thing
Yeah, right.
than
It's
it
a
is
hobby.
as a full-time, like, man, if I don't get this gig, you're trying to balance what your worth is, what your time's worth, and you're trying to balance what everybody else wants, and you're trying to balance the artistic side of it that we all want to do certain things. It's a very difficult. I don't know how I've done it. Honestly, it's crazy when I think about it that way. But I think about it in very small, segmented pieces all the time. That's how when I'm working on something, I'm thinking about pieces, not.
And then you put all the pieces together.
If I think about this,
Yeah.
I'm going to be totally lost.
So if you weren't a musician, what do you think you'd be doing with your
This
life?
is crazy. A scientist?
A scientist.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
all
love
right.
science.
Okay.
I love to watch like all the stuff on the science channels, and I love like this thing with Elon Musk with the new rocket.
Oh, I know.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was just so
Pretty cool stuff.
over the moon about this whole idea. So I always wanted to be, before music, I was always interested in aerospace. So it's funny that I ended up in Huntsville.
Perfect place.
Because as a kid, I always wanted to be a pilot or an astronaut. And that didn't work out, but I did end up in a town where that's, the income here. So it's always exciting
It is
to be here.
It is, and we're growing, and I think there's more opportunities for musicians now as the city grows. Also,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
is
The
a good
city's
thing.
growing, and there is things are starting to expand, and there are more and more places to play.
So where do you see the music industry going? I know you also do recording, and you record other artists as well as your bands and your artist and yourself.
Right.
You've had several CDs. As a matter of fact, I was fortunate to have one of your CDs that you gave to me, which I love. So where do you see the music industry going, in your opinion?
It's people say it all the time. It's changing all the time. It's constantly moving. So it's cool. There's with music, I think this is why I'm into music. Is that there's so many variations of things that you can get into about it. Whether it's the recording side or production, like being a producer, being actually involved in projects and seeing them to fruition. I never get bored with it. So as far as what things are, things are growing in all different directions all the time. So I think it's cool. I think that you can do so many different things that I don't think it's, people are a little worried about certain genres, maybe rock. But I think, there's always somebody new coming. You got this Greta Van Fleet band that everybody's excited about.
Yeah, they are great.
And, you never know. It may or may not be fruitful, but at least we've got, something that's saying, yeah, people could dig that again. I mean, sure. And it just cycles. So I think it's good. I mean, there's some things with the writers' royalties that have been troublesome to them. And I think they're figuring that out and figuring out how to fix that. And there's a lot of other issues that they could fix. And I think we'll figure those out. iTunes was a little shock to everybody. And I think there's still people like myself and probably you and other people who like physical.
Yes.
And even though CD has apparently gone away from Best Buy last week or whatever, vinyl is
coming
I mean,
back.
I was in the store in
Yeah.
LA and it was
I love
so big. The vinyl selection
love
was
that
like
it's coming
it was
back.
really like when I used to go to the record stores in the 80s.
My son Tyler has vinyl. He thinks it's so cool. So one day I saw him and he was carrying the vinyl around like this. And I said, Tyler, you can't get your fingerprints on there. And he says, why? And I said, well, because there are grooves. And so he played one of his albums and it kept going, stick. It's like,
Skipping it.
And he goes, Mom, what's wrong with my album? Like, it's sticking. And he's like, what does that mean? So,
Right. Isn't that weird?
It's new, but but he loves the vinyl.
That's cool though.
Which is really
it's cool. And I've
Yeah.
seen that in
Yeah.
some of the stores when I've been in the kids. There are kids who really like the physical. So I think in the future we're going to see more of that. I mean, if that's
Yeah, I'm hoping. I think, the guitar itself. There are people saying that who is the next guitar player that will
push it on,
push it on, and who will inspire new guitar players.
Right. And that's a little troublesome. I think that when you're talking about change and the future, there's got to be that person. There needs to be whoever that's going to be.
Whoever that's going to be.
And there might be. I mean, there's guys like Tosin Abasi and other guys like in that realm who are incredible. And the whole multi, 7-string, 8-string, 9-string. is taking that to a whole new place. It's just you got to go look for it. It's it wasn't like when Steve Vai, everybody knew about Steve Vai at the same time.
Yeah.
It's more segmented, so it's harder to find it. But we're figuring that out, I think.
Well, you have released some pretty amazing CDs.
Thank you.
What's been some of your favorite songs on them, and a learning experience that you learned from recording your own music?
Oh, that was why I did it. One of the reasons I did the last CD was because I wanted to take my recording skills to another level, or my mixing skills.
Okay.
I've been recording since I got a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I had, this is a crazy story, but 2 boom boxes. Everybody that, well, not everybody, especially kids today wouldn't know.
They wouldn't know what it
basically,
is.
a boom box is a radio that you carry around, and you could record with it. And I had 2 of them. I think my sister had one, I had one. But what you could do is you could record yourself playing guitar into one, and then you could set that one over here, hit play, and turn the other one on record, and you could record yourself playing to this other track.
You're doing your own tracks.
You're doing multi-track. But I didn't know what multi-track was. I just knew that I wanted to play lead on top of a rhythm that I had just learned from my teacher, and that's what I would do. So how I started recording was I just wanted to be able to implement what he was showing me, how to improvise over an E or something. And I would play to the tape and then record it so I could hear it. So that's how it started.
Okay.
So, you go through the whole, thing with 4-track recorders, little 4 tracks, then to reel, and then to digital audio workstations, and now, crazy. But what was the question?
But recording your own music. All right, you put together a whole CD, which means you wrote all of the music.
Yeah, and I did all the recording.
You played it, and you recorded it. And
I had drummers on it. I
got it out on CDs.
I had friends of mine come over here, and we recorded. We recorded the drums in Birmingham, but primarily I played all their instruments on it. And then I had the drums recorded in Birmingham professionally, but I mixed them. So one of the things I wanted to learn was how to mix real drums.
Okay.
Because I could use samples, I guess, but part of me just wanted to know how that was really done back in the old days, and how I could get to at least. I thought, well, I'll do that first, and then I can use whatever I want after I know how to do it. So it's all building. So recording.
Okay. What about the writing of your music? How do you get inspiration from the music that you write?
Well, usually it's funny because it's either just sitting around playing, noodling, as my favorite hero says, noodling, or it's I could be working on one thing, and then something else just pops out, and then I just go with that.
Go with that one.
It's writing music is. I've never been able to do it structured that well. Like a lot of people go to writing sessions, or they'll get in a room and jam, and sometimes that works. But most of my stuff, it was like stuff I recognize as unique to myself.
So do you just hear something and you go, I got to get this down?
Yeah, usually it's just an idea that pops out. Like I have we call stock licks. You would know about that as a guitar player. You have
That's right. You have
your stock licks. It's like as a vocalist, you would sing
That's right.
this most of the time to get if you were improvising, say. So we have those on guitar. So I might be doing that, and then something non-stock, something that I've never played, pops out by accident or just by luck, and then I take that single idea, record it, and then I build on that.
Just build on it.
And that's pretty much what the CD that I gave you has, all instrumental. Something I never plan on doing, but it's all unique ideas that I went,
Yeah, and I loved it. It was great guitar playing.
Thanks.
On that. Okay, speaking of guitars, if you were stranded on an island, and you could take only one guitar with you,
Oh, wow.
what guitar would that be? For a guitar player, it's a tough question.
For me, geez. Well,
It's kind of like saying, which kid would you take with you?
yeah, I'd probably take the Flying V, because the Flying V, I got a Flying V, 83 Flying V, maybe 10 years ago, and it's sort of like the thing. Guitar players just love the Flying V. A lot of people like Les Pauls, but the Flying V is that unique guitar.
It's got that rock look.
It's just the rock thing, right? And
it
it's such a cool looking guitar, and this one just sounds incredible, and I think it just would always remind me of, rock and roll and my inspiration to be in the business. It's just such a iconic visual to go along with something like these big monsters.
So with all the things that you have going on
Mm-hmm.
and all the success that you've had, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
How lucky are you?
I'm really lucky.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it's, you know, when you first start out, you dream of being your hero
Mm-hmm.
and being in his world, being a rock star.
Yeah.
You know, that's what
That's right.
as a naive kid,
Yeah.
that's what I thought I wanted to be. But when you get older and you actually are in that world, whether you're actually on the road, but maybe you know people in the world, or you've been in that world enough to know, you realize that it's not what you think it might be. It's a lot harder than you think it might be. It's a lot more business oriented than you think it might be. There's so many things that you realize that maybe they don't work for you personally, like traveling. I mean, you got to be able to travel, and you got to be able to travel well with other people, and you got to be able to sleep, which I think is a big thing that people have trouble with on the road.
Yeah, sleeping is very important.
Yeah, and I always had trouble with sleeping. So, I mean, you know, not everybody's cut out for that life. I don't know if I was or wasn't. I didn't really travel extensively at any time for weeks and weeks or anything. But, yeah, I think that with the road or whatever, or that ideal, it's not always what you think. So being lucky, I'm lucky I can do this in my hometown and survive, which, you know, my buddy told me a few weeks ago, you know how lucky you are? I'm like, yeah, I do know how lucky and how hard that is. And I just know there's only like a few people in town that are doing it, and I'm one of them. And, you know, I have my wife who we split everything, and that obviously is a big part of that. But I do feel like, you know, I bring home my part of the living every month, and it's just like any other job, really. Except I'm lucky because I get to do exactly what I love to do. And when I started doing that 10 years ago, it was just like, wow, I can't believe I'm finally doing something that I get up every day and I go, oh, good, I get to go to work today.
Well, when I ask people how lucky do they think they are, when they say they feel very lucky, that means they've worked hard, they've earned it, they've gotten to where they are considered successful, because luck is, you know, the harder you work, the more successful you are, the luckier you are.
True.
So you've been very successful, and that's why
it's and it is all that. It's all the work and all the time, and you do feel very rewarded by the fact that you did earn it.
That's true.
It's a lot of work.
Okay. So you bring up Darla. I want to ask you about Darla.
Yeah.
Amazing woman, amazing wife.
Yeah.
She supports you in all the business, and let's face it, in the music world, that's one thing that a musician has to have, and that is the support of their spouse.
Yeah, and
so tell me about the angel that she is.
Well, every successful musician, I think, that I know has somebody at home that's really supportive. I mean, at all levels, every person that I've interviewed. It's just amazing when you go through those interviews.
Yeah.
You can find that most of those people have that person at home who supports it. It's very difficult to find. And I'm super lucky to have found that. It's so hard.
How long have you guys been married?
Been married 18 years this year. And when we met when I was playing. So, she knew what she was getting into.
Did she see you on stage and say, I must have that?
No.
Or did you see her and go, I must have that?
It was more like I was playing a place that she shouldn't have been, because it was like it was an Eagles, what do you call them?
One of the lodges?
Lodges,
okay,
right? And
all right.
it was for like senior citizens, they hang out there. And her parents were hanging out there, and she went with her parents. So there were very few young people there.
Okay.
Or at that time I was 30 or whatever, 31. And so they were all double our age. So, it was kind of like, oh, there's a cute girl, and she's actually something near my age, So anyway, but no, she wanted to play the drums, is what she wanted to do. So she wanted to hang out with the drummer, but he was way older, so.
Drummers, it's guitar players that you want.
She figured it out. She got that straight. So yeah, it's been a great road, and we've always been a team. So that's a huge thing. And she, some people will never adapt to your life, and they try to fit into it, and other people just naturally fall into what you're interested in. I mean, it seems selfish in a way that she has to be interested in, but she was already interested in music. She loved music before me, so it was a little bit of a natural thing for her to get interested in going to NAMM shows and all that.
I saw her go to the NAMM show with you this past time.
And she's gone, multiple times,
that's great.
But it's been a few years, and so she went this time and really enjoyed herself. It's been a while, so she got really excited to meet Alice Cooper, which we got to finally both meet him, and we have our friend who used to play for him, so that was kind of cool to be able to talk to him about that a little bit, and he was so nice. I mean, when you never know,
Yes,
and when you meet one of these people, and like people were always warning me about Eddie Van Halen, right? When I was going to meet Eddie Van Halen, like 3 years ago today, they don't meet your heroes.
I've heard that.
Don't meet your heroes because you could be disappointed.
Yeah,
and
right.
In his life and time, I think it all worked out for me perfectly because when I met him, he was at exactly the right moment to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it worked out fine. Every time that somebody had that happen to them in the past, it probably wasn't a good time. But with Alice Cooper, it was the same thing. It felt like, wow, you always imagine it's going to feel natural. And it was totally like that.
That's great.
So, yeah, it was great.
Maybe he's mellowed out also.
Yeah, I think I really think he's, I've heard he's a great guy, but just having a moment with him, I was like, wow, this guy.
And you got to meet, I mean, who is your most favorite guitar player?
Well, of course, Eddie Van Halen.
So you got to meet with him and hang out with him and everything.
About 3 years ago.
Actually, he got to hang out with you. So that's
it was
cool.
the Smithsonian, when he was in the Smithsonian to have his guitars put in, and they did a special thing called, it was about immigrants coming to America and having success stories.
I saw that, and I love that interview.
Yeah.
He really epitomized the immigrants that come here that make America their home.
Sure.
And are proud Americans.
Sure. And it was his story is the classic story. They didn't have anything when they came. One of the things I don't know if he said it in that interview, but I went to his home, his childhood home last 2 weeks ago when I was in LA, and it's always amazing because it's such a small little house, maybe 900 square feet. But the truth was he lived in a smaller place with other families at first when he came to the U.S. So at first he was like sharing a home or apartment with other people from Amsterdam. So, he literally came over the boat, got a really small apartment, and then they eventually, his dad was a musician, so eventually between his regular jobs and playing, was able to get the home and all that. So when I go there, I always think about how hard that was for them to come to, Los Angeles, and then for what to happen to them.
Hard work.
Yeah, and the thing I said in the video that I posted about that, we called it the Van Halen Trail, was that he never left that home until about the fourth Van Halen album came out, Fair Warning. He moved straight from the small home up into the Hollywood Hills. Literally never had anything in between. It's that amazing story about how you can come to the United States with nothing.
With nothing.
And
with the American dream.
with the drive.
That's true.
They had the drive, and he said that in that in that talk in D.C. that the reason that Van Halen made it and anybody else couldn't make it was because they busted their tail. They went out and took it to the people. They sold it, and they worked it and worked it and worked it for a decade, almost. It's all about that.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. It is. So if you could choose one song to play the rest of your life, what song would that be?
You really got me.
You really got me.
Not because it's Van Halen. It's the classic rock riff. I think a lot of people think that was and it's said that it was the first song that distortion was actually kind of on because they cut the speaker with a razor blade and it made a cool sound and it was distortion and I remember when I was a kid that sound was what we wanted. That's what we heard on those records.
That's right.
And it really came from Ray Davies back in the Kinks playing You Really Got Me, not Eddie Van Halen, but when Van Halen did You Really Got Me, it was like they turned it to the next level. And it's always been different since. I mean, everything's evolved since that point.
How many Van Halen concerts have you been to?
probably 15.
15.
Maybe, I don't know
All right.
exactly.
Okay.
A
So
lot.
what's the strangest gig you've ever played?
Oh, God. There's a bunch of those.
You can't narrow it down to one.
Oh, God. Well, there's this one place I used to play I played it for a decade. It was called the American Legion Hall. It was in Bessemer, Alabama, it's kind of the blue collar section of Birmingham, where the steel mills are very close, Fairfield, that whole area. We started at 11 at first, and then we moved to 12, and it ended at 5. So it was a total late night dump out for anybody who either was too messed up to go home yet or was getting off work, and that was kind of what you had there. And the stuff I saw there over 10 years was
probably not speakable, right?
a lot of it, no. But it was literally like the proving grounds for me. It was the place where I have to give like my band that was called 911, and there was one called Wolf Creek at that point that were after my 80s bands, 90s bands. There was one called Relics too that was in between there, and Panda Bang Wangas, which I've got back together again.
I've heard of them.
But that band in between was where I cut my teeth on all this different material, where I built my repertoire.
So every band, every player has to pay you dues, right?
That's where it was. And I think like a lot of people, like the younger people I bring into my bands, they sort of have to do this too. It's not like I'm not making them. This is just part of the process.
Yes.
It's not, and learning about your craft and learning about what people are attracted to musically, it's just part of it. It's what I did. I had to do it too. I spent 10 years in this place, and it wouldn't be considered nice, compared to some of the places that we play. But it didn't matter. I was learning.
Right. It's about playing. It's about getting out there, and like I
playing.
said, every band member has to pay you dues because no one starts at the top of the
Never.
gigs.
Never. You always start out terrible.
That's right.
You always. People say Eddie Van Halen said the guitar came pretty easy to him. Mm-hmm. It does to some people, but there's still a mechanical thing that has to happen. It's going to take even Eddie Van Halen a little bit of time.
Right, yeah.
Even though he had classical piano under his fingers, he still had to, he spent some time getting there. It wasn't like it happened overnight. If you listen to the bootlegs, you can hear that he wasn't the developed player in 75 or 76 that you heard in 78.
Yeah.
He made a huge leap in there. But that's from playing. That's gigging. That's, they say it. They gigged all the time. They gigged, 4 to 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
And super long 4 or 5 hours of sets. They did 4 sets, not 3 like we do. So yeah, they learned on the job.
So how many gigs do you play a week?
3 to 4, depending on what what I want to do. One of the things that I ran across probably over the last few years was that I needed to make sure that I balanced how much I worked. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows the balance in their life, but
any business person, it's a 24-hour thing.
Right.
You're constantly working it.
Yeah, you're working it even if you're not working physically.
Yeah.
But I did realize I needed to take some time here and there just to have a day or two to do something else.
Yeah.
My mom used to always be like, you just do this. This is too much. You play all the time.
That's your mom's
all
thing.
you think about.
My mom says, you work so hard.
You need to get some other hobbies. And I'm like, Mom, this is my hobby.
Yeah. So what hobbies do you have besides music then?
Not many.
Probably none.
Not many. No, I play golf with my dad sometimes.
Are you a good golfer?
I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
We started really young,
Okay.
so he had me out there when I was a little bitty kid, so that helped. That was almost like, I think when you think of some great player like Tiger Woods or some great guitarist like Eddie Van Halen, it starts because they started really, really young.
Yeah.
And it seems natural because in that period,
they're just taking it in. It
soaks in so easily.
True.
So when golf was introduced to me as a little kid with little cut-off sticks, it now feels like just getting back on the horse when I go back out. And not great at it, and I'm not, my short game sucks, but it feels pretty natural, even though it's not. It was learned.
So what would be something tell me something that you got from your mom and something that you got from your dad?
Well, my mother Well, my dad I got the business thing from.
Okay.
He's very bottom line oriented, and he looks at everything as a business. Sometimes I have to go back to him and say, "Hey, I get it. I understand that we were worried about the finances, and I get that, and I worry about them. But music is also art, and it's not all about the finances. There's a balance there. So we usually get to where we need to get to with that.
Good lessons learned.
We'll get there, but Mom is more emotional.
Okay.
She's more sensitive. She used to say, "You're just sensitive like me. That's why, it's hard for you to do certain things and crowds." And because I used to be really shy when I was young, so as I grew up, I realized if you want to be in the entertainment business, you have to kind of let the shyness go and get on with that. And it's sort of like this program. When I first started filming these things, I was really nervous about it, and then you have to become where it's like second nature by doing it. Adjusting, and over time people wouldn't think I was introverted, at all, but I was like the kid that wouldn't speak, does he talk, and is he, what's he do at night, because he's always asleep in class.
Well, that's great that you have those two balancing things between your mom and your dad.
And they both have these great qualities that I was able to get from them that I'm eternally grateful for, because really the way you're brought up is most of it, and the other thing that Joe Satriani says, which always plays to me, is that 90% of success is showing up. Because
I've known people that just didn't show up.
It's like most of the time, if you just do a good job and show up and do the job you're supposed to do, it's not that hard. But you'd be surprised how many artists have trouble with those things. And it's part of the brain thing. I don't know. We were talking about that earlier about artist brains, how we are a little, we can focus really hard, but then we can't necessarily focus very well when we're not doing that. And it gets
squirrel
scattered.
Comes along and that's it.
Oh, squirrel. Right, exactly. And that seems to be a regular thing in the music business and very intense with the super talented people like Eddie Van Halen. You hear that all the time about him, that he's a genius, but there's a lot of issues with that, that go around it that were probably out of balance as far as, like we're talking about having balance. Yeah.
So what would you like to leave in this world as a legacy of what Jeff is about?
Well, I just want people to know they could do what they want to do, because
that's awesome.
I was scared to death like everybody else. When you're 14 and you go, I want to be a rock star. I mean, that's like, what?
Sure.
That's going to be really hard to do. And my parents were scared for me. They were like, and I wanted to go to LA and I wanted to do all this crazy stuff, and they were really scared for me. But I kept on my path. I found my way to it. And when, that happened, and that was through a bunch of different things happening. And I basically had to build my career back to being a full-time musician by just a bunch of different circumstances where I ended up with enough bands, and I started with one band, and then I added another band, and I added another band, and before I knew it, I had enough income coming in that I realized, I could maybe do this full-time, and that's when I made the jump full-time. So part of it was circumstance that allowed me to do it. Part of it was having a partner who supported me. Not totally supported me, just supported my will to do it. And knew I'd be happy doing it. And then getting out and doing it and being happy. When you're happy and you're doing what you love, it's like they say, you never work a day in your life.
That's true.
And it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like working, you're carrying a big cabinet, but you know what I mean. When you get up, you want to go to work. That's what you need to know. Whatever that is, you got to find that. To me, I mean, you guys have done that, I'm sure. I think anybody that's really successful in anything has found that thing.
Yeah, and again, it's paying your dues. Everybody who wants to find your thing, you're always going to have to start with paying your dues, and then
you'll get your thing.
And then you'll get your thing.
Sure you will. If you stick with it.
You got to stick with it, and you got to show up.
Show up and stick with it. I mean, those are really simple business principles, but they're some of the most important.
Yeah. And it makes it worth it. So speaking of making it worth it, what's the best gig that you've ever played? God. That you'd say, man, I would do that all over again.
There were so many good ones. You know what? There are gigs every so often, not every weekend, but like we had one Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, you walk in and everything comes together. The people just go bonkers and
And the songs are the right songs.
and it just works.
Yeah.
And there's so many. But they're not so many that it bores you. That you get used to it. The night before wasn't so good.
Okay.
And the thing about it was with Plan B, and the weekend before we had an awesome gig.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned to Kelly, our singer, who's fairly younger, and I said, "This is the kind of gig that makes you appreciate last weekend's gig, because if you had that last weekend every weekend, where would be the win, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If everything was given to you on a silver platter, where's the accomplishment?"
Mm-hmm.
And so every big gig, I'm just like, "Oh, wow, that was good," and I feel like going back home and getting ready for the next one, Yeah. So it's my juice.
That's good.
And there's so many gigs that are so great. They're just, there's obviously ones I can think of way back in the day, and when I was younger, there was some really just awesome things. We won a contest one time to open for the Romantics, which was really cool. So that was, and we won money, and we got to be on the radio, and we were on the radio and TV and a bunch of other stuff back in the day. So there were things like that around that were cool. Your parents got to see, and all your friends and family got to see on TV.
I'm so proud of you.
Right, and all that. So those are cool, but getting open for that band was cool because they were, we played their song at the time. We played What I Like About You. At that moment, we were playing in that band, so we had to take it out of the set list. We didn't get beat up.
So what advice would you give to a musician who wants to get into a band?
Well, if you you mean somebody who's brand new to music or somebody who's been playing?
Somebody who's been, in their back bedroom with their amps, their guitars, and they've just been playing the riffs, and they've been getting their chops down, and they're like, okay, I really want to
play with somebody else.
I really want to play with somebody else.
Yeah.
What would be your advice there?
Well, it depends on your age. Obviously, like I did, I managed to talk my other friends into it.
So if you can't join a band,
make one.
Make one.
Make one out of your friends.
That's the one.
Talk them into it.
Okay.
So go get them a guitar and say, "Here, I'll show you how to do this. I'll play along with." Because that's what we did. I literally would show my buddy how to play bass, and I said, "You play the bass," and then he turned out to be a pretty good bass player and still plays guitar to this day. But yeah, that would be first. And then if you're, say, 20-ish, you got college and high school, and friends in high school first, and then college. You try to find those bands. You can go to music stores. I'd say, go hang out in music stores. You'll meet other musicians there. I worked at a music store.
I did too. In college, I worked at a music store.
So when I worked at a music store, I met people all the time. They would come in and play, and I'd go, "He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Play bass for us?" And that's how one of our bass players came about. Going to shows, meeting other people at shows.
Okay.
You go out and see other bands, and you see somebody, start talking to somebody. You never know. It literally happened to me with the Panda Bang Way, because this guy and I ran into each other seeing my friend Damon way back, and I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm trying to find a band." I'm like, "I'm trying to find a singer," and literally, boom, done.
It happened.
And we put it together, and we're still playing together today, 30 some odd years later. Mm-hmm. You gotta, when I moved here, this is a good story. My wife was really important in this success of anything that happened in Huntsville, and I'll tell you why. Because I lived in Birmingham, everything I had done and everything I had built up was in Birmingham.
Okay.
When I came to Huntsville, I didn't know I knew of Dave Anderson, but I didn't know him at all. That's the only person I knew. And so I'm like, I really want to play in a band again. And she's like, well, you really got to get out and see somebody and meet some people if you want to be in a band again.
Yeah, go out and play with the other kids.
Right, exactly. And so I did that. And I found a drummer and singer pretty quickly. And that became the first version of Crush.
Well, let me ask you this. See, these days, Craigslist and Band Mix, and of course going to see the bands is the way a lot of band members find them. How did you find your drummer? Was that going out to the shows?
Yeah, he was playing for another
Okay,
band.
all right, okay,
And I asked him, I said, "Do you know any other drummers?"
okay.
Because obviously he's a drummer, he would know drummers. And he goes, "I'm interested." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know if you'd be interested." So that's where that started. And I had a bass player that I played acoustic with. We did a duo for a while, and we didn't have anything else. But we had our harmonies down. We had worked our harmonies out. We had a lot of songs together by that point, a couple of years of that. And then we just added him in. And I went and switched to electric, and he switched to bass, and done.
Okay.
So Crush was born out of a three-piece,
Okay, so
out
it's
of an
about
acoustic project.
you just have to get out there and meet people. Being in bands and playing music, it's all
Just
about
talk about it too,
relationships.
because the funny thing about the bass player is that his wife was our gym instructor, and it was just saying that I was a musician or whatever that said, "Hey, well, my husband plays bass," and I'm like, "What? He's a singer too." Like, and it was just a small conversation that created that opportunity to meet him, and then created Crush. It was literally out of some very, just literally barely making any effort at all, just putting it out there that you wanted to, and the 10 years went by. Boom.
That's great. That's great. Well, you've had an amazing career, and it continues to grow with all of the bands that you have, and just watching you, I know you have helped develop many musicians here.
Yeah, I got into that. That's weird. I
Yeah.
started to mentor some, which has been interesting. I've really had some pretty cool things happen with that. I put a kid out and helped a kid get to GIT, where I never went. He's out
That's
there
great.
loving it,
Yeah.
living it, and it's awesome. And I've had other mothers that had children that knew me from playing.
So, what's the one thing
Mhm.
that you would like musicians to remember about whether it's playing, whether it's trying to be a rock star, whether it's what's the one thing that you have felt inside of you that you always try to remember when you are either playing or you're creating, or when you're mentoring? What's that thing that's in here that keeps you going as a musician?
Well, I mean, for me, all those things that you're talking about. I mean, the mentoring has been new for me, and it's been exciting in a way because, it's great to be able to give back. Something that sometimes I think it's just you get older and you realize that it's important.
Absolutely important.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's something that as you get older, you realize you have enough experience to share, and like with the younger people that are involved in my bands, I'm always trying to share the experience. When I was younger, we were all younger, and I had older guys that were teaching me things, and I was also learning things about what they were doing that was not working either. So I would watch what they do, and then I'd always try to figure out what was working. So musicians always got to know their crowd. I think that's, if you come to me,
know your crowd.
you come to me, that's the first thing I'm going to say to you is that, as a cover artist in a band, I'm an artist. I do my own music, but I also play in a cover band. Mm-hmm. So in my cover world, I'm always worried about the customer. I'm worried about making sure that I touch as many people in that room as possible. Making sure that I can touch as many people as possible. Yeah. In our world, it's, you get 500 people. That's a big deal. Or 1,000 people locally. You might do like concerts at the park or whatever. That's hundreds of people, thousands maybe.
Thousands.
And that's a lot of people. And that's great. And you want to touch as many of those people as you can with your music. For me, that's how it is. Now, there are artists who would prefer, to do what they do, and if that makes people happy, fine. But normally with their own music.
Yeah.
And then covers is another thing where you've got capability. Do you have all the people who can do that? That kind of thing. But you got to please your public, and they are not you. They don't even own albums, maybe. They may not. I mean, I don't know when this started for me, but there was a point when it became clear to me, maybe it was when I got going up here in Huntsville, that people in this area, their average people do not necessarily own music like we do, because we love music. We buy
Right.
music. We consume
That's
music.
true. Every day, it's
We
a part.
live it.
Yeah.
And all of our friends do.
That's right.
And all the musicians in town do. And I get it. I love that. I mean, I'm one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
But there was some point where I realized, oh, but they don't. And I'm trying to touch them. And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to please me first. And I'm not saying you can't please yourself some in that way, but there's a balance. And you have to figure out how to do that. So when I bring the young people in, I'm always like trying to tell them, because they'll throw an idea at me and I'm like, probably not going to work. I feel like the dad, like,
Yeah.
Knowing everything, right? I don't know everything.
Well, you've lived it.
I don't know everything.
I think that makes a difference.
But the thing is, after you've done 5,000 gigs and you've played, 5,000 gigs for 30 years, and you've played practically every song you can think of that's been popular, you kind of see which ones work and which ones don't.
Yeah.
And you learn what people respond to. And it becomes really easy for you to pick songs. And you just want to make it easy for them, that's all I'm saying, is like, we could do that. But if we do that, we might lose some people. Do we want to lose people? I mean,
it's a balance, yeah.
I did it this weekend, Lisa. I mean, I pulled the cardinal sin on myself.
Did you play something that
Jeff
wanted to play?
I played 3 songs Jeff wanted to play back
and it
to
was
back.
for Jeff only.
And I should have been kicked, because by the time the set was over, the night was over, and it was only 3 songs.
Yeah.
But we put them at the end of the set. I did it on purpose. Yeah. I knew it would have maybe contribute to that. It may not have been totally the songs. Could have been people who were tired, but the set up to that point had killed the whole way.
That's a great lesson learned that you can only get from a mentor. You are absolutely right. And it's something I've not thought of. In the business world, I always tell people, get a mentor so that you don't have to spend and waste your time making the same mistakes that they've already done.
Yeah.
And you can succeed a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And, I haven't really always put that toward the music world. But the one thing that I remember, before I even met you, I sent you some Facebook messages asking you some advice on some things, because you were posting that you were using these type of sound gear, and I was curious, and I asked you, and then I asked you other questions, and I remember how gracious you were and how nice you were to really.
I was.
I mean, hey, he doesn't mentor just to young people; he mentors to old people too.
I mean, anybody can send me a question. I mean, I'm always open to anybody to anybody asking me anything about music, because I love to talk about that, and it's something that I have sat there and done all my life, and it's great to be able to help you or anybody, get an easier way, because I've already done that work for you. I mean, why not? I mean, if I can show you or help you, I think it's great. I always want to foster the music in our area, or anybody who wants to do it.
See, there you go, everybody. Everybody out there, this man is ready to mentor and help.
Yeah, send me a message.
On his spare time, which is like,
I'll answer it.
2 a.m. in the morning.
Well, that's
probably.
when I answer it. I answer it at night when I'm watching YouTube, learning more stuff about music stuff. I'm just addicted to it. I've been addicted to the music. I mean, look at the stuff. People always wonder why I have this. I have been collecting gear since I was 14 years old. And so the reason I have a lot of gear is because if you hoard anything year after year after year for 40 years, it's going to be piled to the ceiling by the time you get through 40 years. And it's just, I love it. And every guitar feels different, and it makes you feel a certain way.
Every guitar has a song in it that's
my
a different
wife
song.
always, I've been trying to tell her this for years, because it's always like, you don't need another guitar. No! Constantly. But I explained it to her, like, when I pick up a guitar, or anything, could be any instrument, really, piano, keyboard, when I pick it up, there's always a flash of inspiration in there somewhere. And that guitar could be that guitar that writes that greatest song I ever wrote, or it could be, just something I really enjoy being with all the time. It could be the guitar that I always use, like my red Wolfgang. They become part of you.
That's true.
You know, I guess there's one other thing that I'd say too, and that's about what you asked me, what I would tell musicians.
What would you tell a musician?
Well, there's, obviously the 90, showing up is 90% of it. But there's also, like you were saying, the whole thing about preparation, paying your dues. And this comes from Steve Vai, and I think you probably got it somewhere else too. But when you know your material, without an iPad, without notes, you can become the music. I mean, you can.
That's deep.
You
become the music.
Well, that's Steve Vai. He's deep. He's deep. Yeah. But the point is, once you can let go of the technical and the stuff that's all in here that you think about all the time, you can now transmit.
It just comes through.
Transmit to the people the message in a more pure, emotional, connective way. He said that about his gigs. I asked him, why are you doing 300 gigs a year? You're almost 60. How can you do that? And I said, why are you doing that? Because you don't have to do that. He says, because I'm practicing connecting better with people. That was more or less the message he was trying to tell me. I'm trying to live more in the moment, trying to let go more, let go of the things that bog you down mentally from being able to become the music. That's my new thing. Become the music. That's my newest thing.
Become the music. That's awesome. I really like that. Become the music.
Because in that is that pure joy that you get, and they get in that moment when it's no ego. It's about you delivering a message and giving it to the people. I do the Star Spangled Banner. And I always kind of felt funny about doing it, and because it's such an iconic thing. 1, 2, you don't want to mess it up at all.
Yeah, because if people know that song, they know
it inside now. Everybody knows that.
That's right.
Average Joe knows that one too, and they know every single part of it, and they sing along to it. But I also didn't want it to come off in an egotistical way. Like I'm trying to, I don't know. I just didn't want to feel cheap about it.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be real. And I go into my little world in that, and I focus on the music. I become that music. Because in that moment, I don't want it to be about anything but that music and those people. Me, I'm just the vehicle. That's how I see it. And that's what becoming the music is. I mean, yeah, you got the faces and the people in the bands, and that's important, the image, but what's important is how you connect to those people. That's what they remember when they go home.
That's true.
Did you hit them here?
Did you get them here?
Did you hit them here?
Yeah.
And we played this Whitney Houston song. Everybody knows I'll always love you. And, it's sort of like, it's a little sentimental, right, for a bar. But when you look out there and see people's faces, and, our girl is delivering this in a way that is affecting them, just like the Star Spangled Banner does to people, that is what I live for. That juice, When you see that, you go, wow. When I was a kid, I never thought that I would be able to stand on the stage with an instrument and be able to do that to people and give them that gift, because it was a gift for me and you and everybody we know.
Yeah,
music such a gift.
It is,
and to be able to take that and
share it with
other people, whether you're doing originals or whether you're doing covers, it doesn't matter what you do. It matters how you deliver it, how you and people get caught up in the things, And if you can unconnect from your things and just be the messenger, man, it's the best ever. That's why I love music.
This is why Jeff is so amazing. He is who he is, and he's a great musician. Like I said, he's a great friend, and I love the become the music part because that's what it's all about.
I think I'm gonna get that tattooed on me.
I think you should. I think you should have a T-shirt that too.
Yeah,
but become the music. That's going to be
become the music.
I'm going to remember that motto and
strive to become the music. If you can become the music, then you're doing your job.
And you're sharing music with, and that's something that music just crosses all borders.
Yeah, I mean,
it really does.
You're like you're like you think of your family. Yeah, they have some connection to it, but when they go see a show, a movie. When they have the soundtrack, I was always into soundtracks as a kid. How powerful the music is to Star Wars, say, and how that through time can still get you. You know, I'll tell you this story about a soundtrack. E.T. I saw this documentary called Sound. I think it's called Soundtrack. Anyway, it's called The Score. The Score. It's a documentary called The Score. And in it, they're talking about E.T.'s soundtrack with John Williams, who, when I was a kid, that's the stuff we heard. I mean, before Van Halen, there was Star Wars, right? Right before, right? So I got like, wow, that is awesome. And so I was watching The Score, this new documentary on music, and they showed one scene at the end of E.T. where E.T.'s getting on the rocket ship, and you remember it, right? But when you hear the music with
yes,
instantly make you tear up. That's how powerful that is. How powerful music is. It can just 40 years later, for just 1 minute, a scene with that music, just pow! I mean, wow!
Yeah.
It's just
so
powerful.
There you go. So we are also fortunate to have that music in us, to share the music, and I think I'm going to strive harder to become the music. And thank you, Jeff.
Awesome.
What a joy it is to be with you.
Thank you for having me today. Happened to me today on my show. That's okay. I'm glad to do it. She taught me into this, but I was, people. It was Scott O'Haney, my buddy, was also wanting me to do it. So
yeah. Glad we could get the man who's behind the camera in front of the camera and talking about all the music stuff that he knows. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Episode 16. Me. 17, 18 coming up. Subscribe.
Sweet 16.
Yes.
You're the one for that. You're an audience today.